The Diesel is throwing gas on the Wemby flame. Other than the comments he made back in September talking about Wemby's not going to be dominant or he cannot be dominant being a shooter, on top of that, he's now ranking him where? Out of the top 20. We're going to break it all down here on Spurs Digest with your host, Keenan Warner. And we're still on the road to 2K. Don't think we're going to do it before the start of the regular season unless there's a massive spike. But if that's the case, you guys need to be a part of it. Hit that subscribe button. Take a spur of the moment. Get every Spurs moment moving forward this season. We've got a lot in store for you guys. And hopefully the Spurs have a lot in store for us because we have nothing if they don't have anything. But Shaq's got us something. Shaq reveals how Wemby can earn his respect. Obviously, Shaq is not shied away from criticizing Wemby. He's not really shied away from criticizing anybody, especially bigs in the league. But we've got Wemby, 20 years old, already one of the most dominant players in the league. I mean, he averaged 3.6 blocks in under 30 minutes last year. Just as just a show real quick. 21, 11, 4. I mean, you've seen these stats as many times as you can count. 3.6 blocks, 1.2 steals. His per 36 was 26, 12, 4.5 blocks, and 1.5 steals through a game. So that's in 36 minutes, which you're going to see a more uptick in his minutes here moving forward. But Defensive Player of the Year, runner-up last year, favorite to win it this year. You've got to be a pretty dominant player, especially if you're going to do that within your first 2 years. Going to win probably a Defensive Player of the Year. Could take home a Most Improved. Clearly was the runaway Rookie of the Year last season, even though Chet had himself a great year. But clearly a dominant player. And pretty much every member of the media agrees that he's a special player. Why? Because he's a special player. It's only a matter of time before he takes over the league. He's got the size to take over the league. He's got the handle. We know he has the grit, the heart, the passion. He doesn't care about anything else. He's the one that's calling out other players saying that's it. And we're going to get into that comment here in just a moment because it applies here. But one of the most accomplished players, Shaquille O'Neal, doesn't feel that same way about the great guy that we have. In September, as I said, he's not quite yet a dominating player, and then Wemby is a great player. I don't think he really can be a dominant player when you shoot jumpers a lot. I think if he's inside at 7'5", the answer will be yes, but when you shoot jumpers, you're always going to go up and down, but he's a fine player. I wish him well. Well, here's the thing. It's the 2024 NBA season. Maybe in 2000, maybe in 1990, you came in 92, maybe around those times when your bigs were inside out. You had David Robinson who could hit a mid-ranger, but he's obviously, as we know, he was going to get to the basket. The Admiral was a very strong paint presence. You got Hakeem Olajuwon. He could hit a jump shot, but obviously Hakeem was known for being the best guy on the block. We've got Patrick Ewing. You've got Karl Malone. I know he's not a center, but he's still a big. Kevin McHale. All of these bigs. Alonzo Mourning, another kind of a shot blocker type. Dikembe Mutombo, shot blocker type. All of these bigs that are going to predicate themselves, not including Shaq to that conversation, within 15 and in. You could hit, some guys could hit that 18-footer, hit that 20-footer. They wouldn't take a three-point shot, but if they really needed to, they could, and it wouldn't be the worst shot in the world, but they're not taking those shots. You didn't have this kind of change thanks to Steph Curry. You didn't really have this change in big. I mean, then you had players like Dirk Nowitzki. I don't know. Dirk Nowitzki, I think, dominated games. They just didn't dominate in the same way. We saw him on that playoff run in 2011. He was dominating games, and that was a big guy, but he had a jump shot, the fadeaway mid-range. He could shoot great from the three-point line. He's a 50-40-90 kind of guy, an elite shooter and one of the elite playmakers for himself in the game. He had one of the most unblockable shots up there with the Kareem skyhook, that Dirk fadeaway. You don't block it. So we saw people stretch it out more. Obviously, Tim Duncan could stretch out. He could hit a three, but he was more so going to be 18, 21, shooting from there. So in today's NBA, though, Jokic hits threes. Embiid hits threes. I know the thing with Embiid, you wish he took a little less, but Embiid hits threes. all the bigs in the league. Kristaps Porzingis, he hits threes. Karl Anthony Towns, he hits threes. Rudy Gobert doesn't, but Rudy Gobert isn't within the top 32 players, in my opinion. We're going to get into that too. But that's what the league is today. You've got to shoot. If you can't shoot, you're not going to be in the league as a premium player. That's just how the game works now. So, Shaq, as your comments were good back in the day, yes, you can be a dominant player shooting the basketball, even if you're 7'5". And we're going to break down this list because this is really where the ranking comes in. That was the comments from before. His top 50 to 21. I'm excited to see what his 20 to 1 is. But DiVincenzo, Harden, DeJounte, Scotty Barnes, keep going on. Klay Thompson, Franz. Sabonis at 42 is insane. But I mean, Sabonis at 40. Jalen Green is not a better player than Sabonis. There's a lot more to pick out of this than just Wemby. Sabonis is absolutely better than Jalen Green. But, okay, we're going to go from there. Then we got Tyrese Maxey at 39. Tyrese Maxey's not better than LaMelo Ball. Not better than LaMelo? What are we doing? Okay, I looked at this list, but I didn't look at it as in-depth as I needed to. Not better than... Okay. All right, Shaq. Alrighty, Shaq. And then we've got Wemby at 31. I'm just going to name the people in this. Better than Bradley Beal. A healthy Kawhi Leonard's a conversation, but Kawhi's never healthy. So get him out of there. Jamal Murray, get him out of there. Not better than Zion. Not better than Zion. Not better than Paolo. Julius Randle's better than Sabonis? No. He's clearly not better than Wemby, but like Karl Anthony Towns, Trae Young. This list is terrible. This list is absolutely terrible. This is why players can't make lists. And I understand as a player, he's probably like, well, you don't know the game like I do and blah, blah, blah. And you know what, Shaq? I don't. I didn't play on the NBA level. I didn't average 36 and 15 over 3 NBA finals averaged altogether. I mean, Shaq, long track record of tearing these bigs down. Bill Walton, David Robinson, Dwight Howard. He likes Giannis. He's fine with Giannis getting the Superman kind of a title, but he does not like the fact that Dwight Howard got the Superman title. And before we're going to talk about Shaq a little bit here more, I just want to say Shaq's obviously one of the 10 greatest players to ever play the sport. He's one of the 3 greatest bigs to ever play the sport. It depends on how you kind of constitute it. It's Bill Russell, it's no order. It's Bill Russell, it's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, it's Wilt Chamberlain, it's Shaquille O'Neal, it is Hakeem Olajuwon. Those are your 5 best bigs who ever played, and he is one of them. If you want, some people have him as high as 1, which I think is crazy because it's Kareem. Some people have him as low as 5, which is But anyways, one of the 5 greatest bigs to ever play the game, 24 and 11 for his entire career. This is including stints towards the end of his career where he wasn't good with like the Celtics and other things like that. Those averages could be even higher. And then 15-time All-Star, 2-time scoring champion, 4-time NBA champ, 14-time All-NBA, All-Rookie, Rookie of the Year, 3-time All-Defense, 3-time All-Star Game MVP, 3-time Finals MVP, MVP in 2000 and 99, 2000. He one of the guys to perfect the trifecta of Finals MVP, MVP during the regular season, All-Star MVP, All-NBA, 75th team. All of this stuff is very much true for Shaq, and I get he is great, but just because you're great doesn't mean that you have to break down all of these players because they're not exactly what you want. It's the same way. Michael Jordan was a phenomenal player, did not run a great team. Not a lot of these great players, because they have different standards and they don't see the game in the same kind of way, and their lens isn't as sharp, even though their knowledge is through the roof. Shaq knows he forgets more basketball than I know. So I'm not even trying to make it seem like he's not a smart guy. He absolutely is. When it comes to this list, though, absolutely no understanding as to why. And it might be a little hard to see. This is my top 32. Every year on my podcast I do with my brother, Warner Brothers Podcast. Great. Every year I break down the top 32 going into the season, going out of the season. My list is a little different because of the Olympics. If you would have seen the list on the podcast around June 26th, right after the championship for the Celtics, it'd be a little different than this. But, pay attention, Wemby's 14. Because he's better than all of those guys. You could argue he's better than Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell has proven himself multiple times in playoff series. I understand he's gotten his team to second rounds of the playoffs. He's been the best player, dropped 50 in playoff games. We just saw him drop 37 in a game 7. We're going to leave him there. Jalen Brunson showing what he can do in these playoff series. We just saw the greatness that he did. Wemby's in his first year. Wemby has a chance to get himself into the top 10 easy. It's just the fact that your resume, obviously availability, injury, all of that stuff has to come into play. And I'm very much willing to have a conversation, sidebar. I know this is Spurs Digest. Willing to have a conversation with anybody who wants to comment on this list specifically. I'm actually going to post this just list in the description, or not in the description, but just like first comment so you guys can see it. But anyways, this is the full 32, and Wemby is clearly a top 15 player. At worst, he's 17th. If you want to say Booker, Morant, and Jaylen Brown are better than him because of what they've done in the playoffs and things, Booker got into a finals. Yeah, John Morant got into the playoffs a few times, led his team there. Jaylen Brown just won finals MVP. I get all of that, but he's not, no. Just everything else, no. And I just don't understand why Shaq even thinks that that's a smart thing. His list is terrible. Shaq's a phenomenal player, top 10 all time. Again, you need to preface these things when you talk bad about these guys because it's not anything on this guy. It's not anything bad on Shaq. His list is just terrible. And he doesn't understand. He's letting even more of a flame under Wemby. Wemby continues, I think, his point per game's creeping up. I thought it was going to be 26. He might get 30 a game this year. He's really going to be upset with everybody in the league. And the last thing I'm going to say, he was talking about the work ethic of other people. Shaq, if you had the work ethic of what Wemby has already, you probably would be a top 3 player of all time because your peak stretch is up there with any player. You cannot take that away from him. 36-15 over 3 finals. That's up there with anything Mike did, anything LeBron's done, anything Kareem's done, anything anyone has done. It's up there. But you didn't have the work ethic. That's why you and Kobe broke up. That's why he was so upset with you. I'm so glad, God rest his soul, Kobe. I'm glad you guys made up and you're fine and you were there at his last game and you love him because you obviously have a love for him. But he didn't like you during your tenure towards the end in 03-04, during that stretch, because you didn't work hard enough. And you're going to talk about this guy and not being able to be dominant. Maybe he doesn't have the body for it, but just in today's NBA, he's going to be a dominant force. He's going to be a dominant force at any era ever because it's Victor Wembanyama. But let me know in the comments what you think about all of this. If Shaq's in line, out of line, what you think of the list, everything there. We're going to be breaking down way more stuff coming soon, coming with predictions, a preseason recap from Brian. We've got a lot of things in store here at Spurs Digest, but this has been Spurs Digest with Keenan Warner. I appreciate all of you guys, and I will see you guys very soon.